The second property, it's called elements and electric conductivity. Elements and electric conductivity. Elements and electric conductivity. Okay? Elements and electric conductivity. We wanted to know which good conductors of electricity and which bad conductors for electricity. When we bring a dry cell or a battery and electric lamp and copper wire and form an electric circuit and repeat the above test using aluminium or iron, then sulfur, then graphite rod, or graphite is carbon, okay? Graphite rod of a pencil, carbon. Graphite is carbon. The lamp lights on using the aluminium because aluminium it's a metal and the metal good conductors for electricity. The lamp lights on using the aluminium, on using iron and graphite rod of pencil. The lamp doesn't light on using sulfur. Again, the lamp will light, illuminate when using what? Aluminium, iron and copper, okay? Because all of these metals and metals good conductor for electricity. When I use sulfur, the lamp doesn't light it up. The lamp doesn't light on when using what? Sulfur, because sulfur is a non-metal and this bad conductor for electricity. But when I replace sulfur by carbon, the lamp lights. But carbon, non-metal. How come? Carbon, non-metal, bad conductors. All non-metals, bad conductors. How it lighted on? Because all non-metals, bad conductors of electricity. Except one non-metal, except one. Carbon is good conductor for electricity. Except one. Carbon, it's good conductor for electricity. So all metals, good conductor for electricity. All non-metals, bad conductor for electricity, except one, which is called the carbon, bad conductor for, good conductor for electricity. Again, all metals are good conductors for electricity. Non-metals are bad conductors for electricity, except one non-metal, which is good conductor for electricity, which is called carbon. Okay? So, we studied two properties of elements. The first one, metals are shiny, have metallic luster. Non-metals aren't shiny, haven't metallic luster. Number two, metals, good conductors for electricity. Non-metals, bad conductor for electricity, except carbon is good. Now, we will study the third property. We will study what? The third property, which is elements and heat conductivity. Elements and heat conductivity. When we bring some parts of different elements, iron, copper, aluminium, carbon, okay, different metals and non-metals, and at one end of each part fix a small piece of wax and expose the another end to the flame of candlelight in this picture. Here it's iron bar and a piece of wax exposed to the flame, okay? When the iron bar having a piece of wax exposed to the flame, the piece of wax will melted, okay? When I replace this iron bar by using sulfur or copper, the wax doesn't melted. Again, when I use iron bar, a piece of wax melted. When I replace it by sulfur or carbon, it doesn't melted. Why? It melted because the iron bar takes the heat from the flame and lets the heat to pass until it melted the wax, okay? While in carbon, it doesn't let the heat to pass through it. By the meaning of what? All metals like iron, aluminium, copper, good conductors of heat, take the heat pass through it. Good conductors of heat because the piece of wax melted. So the metals good conductors of heat, while non-metals like sulfur and coal are bad conductors of heat, doesn't let the heat to pass through, so the piece of wax doesn't melt it. Again, when I take different elements, metal and non-metals, iron, aluminium, copper, sulfur, carbon, and put a piece of wax and expose them to the flame. In case of iron, aluminium, copper, the piece of wax melted because they are metals good conductors of heat, while in case of carbon or sulfur, the piece of wax doesn't melted because they are non-metals, which is bad conductors of heat. From here, we can know that all metals good conductors of heat, all non-metals bad conductors of heat. All metals are good conductors of heat, but all non-metals are bad conductors of heat. So, in this lesson, we know that element is the simplest pure form of matter that cannot be analyzed into two substances. We have 118 element, 92 natural element, while 26 artificial element. We know that the element consists of molecules. Molecules consists of atoms. Element consists of molecules. Inside these molecules there is atoms. So molecules consists of atoms. We know that the elements have two types, metals and non-metals. Metals can be solids or liquids, non-metals solid or liquid or gas. We have only one liquid metal, which is mercury, one liquid non-metal, which is bromine. Okay, then we study the properties of metals and non-metals. Metallic luster number 1, metals have metallic luster, non-metals haven't. Metals are shiny, non-metals not shiny. Metals good conductors for electricity, non-metals bad conductors for electricity, except carbon good conductor for electricity. Metals good conductors for heat, while non-metals bad conductors of heat. Metals good conductors of heat, while non-metals bad conductors of heat. The most important note in this part that non-metals are bad conductors of electricity except one, which is good, called what? Carbon. Except carbon good conductor for electricity, although it's a non-metal. It's okay. Thank you, Junior, for goodbye.